Good morning. I'm Hilburn Michael. I am the 2022 GRRA President. Thank you all so much for being here this morning, and welcome to the Vote Smart Town Hall sponsored by Greensboro Regional Realtors Association and the High Point Regional Association of Realtors and their members. I would like to do a quick introduction of the people who are responsible for this event. We have Mike Barr, who is the President and CEO of GRRA, Joe Sutliff, who is the High Point Regional Association of Realtors, President and CEO, Tracy Stull. There's Tracy, who's the Vice Chair of our GRRA Government Affairs, and Janice Smith-Watkins, who is our Government Affairs Director, who we share with GRRA and High Point Association. I would like to introduce our panel. First of all, Cecilia Thompson. Where is Cecilia? Yeah, back here. Cecilia is currently the Executive Director of Action Greensboro, and Cecilia is a newlywed who was married just last month in Amelia Island, Florida. That's so nice, and has held several positions within the organization over her 13-year tenure. Cecilia is also the co-chair of the Vote Smart campaign and will introduce our other distinguished guests who are here today from Guilford County and Guilford County Schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Cecilia, and we're going to ask that everyone use the mic this morning. We're recording the session for those who could not be here. So thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having us and hosting this beautiful breakfast this morning on a nice spring day. Again, I'm Cecilia Thompson. I'm Executive Director of Action Greensboro. We're an economic development nonprofit focused on quality of life and talent development. I'm also the co-chair of the Smart Schools campaign, which is advocating for both a yes on the $1.7 billion school bond and a yes on the 0.25% sales tax. So we're excited to be with you here today. We have great, excellent partners from Guilford County Schools with us this morning. And one of the exciting things about this campaign is this is a continuation of a bond that was on the ballot in 2020. As you know, the Facilities Master Plan for Guilford County Schools has a whopping $2 billion worth of need to touch every school in the district. Everything from technology and safety upgrades to CTE and STEM education programs, all those tools that we need to integrate, as well as upgrading old buildings. Around 34 buildings will be remodeled and renovated through this work. The $300 million bond that was on the ballot in 2020 was a jump start to this facilities master plan, and we thank the County Commission for putting the full $1.7 billion on the bond so we can finish this deal. I love running bond campaigns, but I do not want to be doing it every 2 years in bite-sized pieces. This is our opportunity to really do this and make a historic change in our community. So our partners at Guilford County Schools are here today to share with you the progress that's already been made on the $300 million, and we need you guys to help spread that word. Get the word out about how much progress has been made on this $300 million that can showcase how much we can do if we pass the $1.7 billion. So I'm going to invite Whitney Oakley and Angie Henry up from Guilford County Schools to share the progress, and then I'll tell you a bit more details about our campaign.
Thank you, Cecilia. I am Angie Henry. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Guilford County Schools. I also want to introduce our other school team members that are here this morning. We do have Dr. Whitney Oakley, who is our Deputy Superintendent. Jose Oliva is our Deputy Chief of Staff. Then we've got our proud principal of Grimsley High School, Jed O'Donnell, is back here at the back. We've got our principal for Allen J. Preparatory Academy, Kevin Wheat, is back here. And then Mike Hettenbach, our school support officer for several of our high schools, is here as well. So thank you all for being here from the school district. I want to start, I've got the clicker, all right. This morning, we're going to start by talking about just understanding the need for this $1.7 billion bond. We also are going to talk about, where we are kind of with the 2020 bond, the $300 million that Cecilia mentioned earlier. We're going to talk about the 2022 bond campaign, and then what our next steps are. So in Guilford County Schools, we have 126 schools, and we have about more than 300 buildings on our campuses. In those buildings, we have about more than 12.5 million square foot of space, building space on those 300 buildings, and they sit on more than 3,000 acres of property. Last year alone, our maintenance department received more than 25,000 work orders to address issues in those 300 buildings. It could be something as small as a door hinge that needs replaced, or it could be something as large as our chilling tower is no longer usable. It's just completely broken down and it needs to be replaced. But we've had more than 25,000 issues that had to be addressed in a single year by our maintenance team. We do have 24 HVAC projects underway currently. Those aren't full replacements. For those of you who are familiar with kind of commercial HVAC, you know that they're big chillers and big boilers and all the piping that has to take place. So the work we're doing with these 24 are replacing pieces of that. We don't have sufficient funds to replace entire systems in our schools, and that's why you'll hear one room's hot, another room's cold, or one area of the building's hot, another area of the building's not, and we can't get the temperatures regulated because we don't have the funds available to address entire systems. We're having to piecemeal it together in these 24 projects. So in 2017, our Board of County Commissioners and our Board of Elections came together and created a joint committee for facilities, school facilities. This committee, did a lot of work on identifying a vendor who could do a facilities assessment study to look at the condition of all of our buildings. This was a third party that was brought in, and again, it was done by both the county commissioners and the Board of Education, so that we have a joint, report that was issued in 2019. This report showed that we had more than $800 million in deferred maintenance, and it also showed that more than 50% of our schools are failing or in poor condition. So the school district used this study to create our facilities master plan. When you look at our facilities master plan, the first 8 projects that are funded with the $300 million bonds were the ones that were listed in order on our facilities master plan. You'll see that the facilities condition assessment score is a significant reason for the order of those projects, but we also took into consideration population shifts that would affect enrollment at schools. We took into consideration where we already had overcrowding, and we also took into consideration other issues in buildings. So while it's not just facilities condition score, that was a significant part of it, but you can see from the list that there are other areas or other items that were taken into consideration as we built that list. So when we talk about the $12.5 million square foot that we've got to maintain right now, and a lot of people say, well, how did the schools get in this condition? How are they in this shape? When you see some of the pictures that are out there of the current condition of our schools, and leaky roofs, and fallen, concrete cracked and falling off steps, and all the different things that we're seeing when we look at our schools, the question is, how did it get that way? And if you look at how we've been funded for our maintenance, these are dollars that are funded by the county commissioners. The county commissioners have statutory responsibility for funding school facilities in North Carolina. So you can see over the last several years, if you go back, I think this adds up to about $97 million in requests that we've asked for building maintenance. And you can see we've got about $39 million. So when you take about $39 million and you divide it by the 12.5 million over 12.5 million square feet, over 7 years we've gotten about $3 a square foot to maintain our buildings. And when you apply that to a home, and you think for the last 8 years, if I had a 2,500 square foot home and I got $3 a square foot and I spent $7,500 on a home that's 50 plus years old, what is that home going to look like? I mean, when you think about it, what would you expect to see when you go see a home and somebody's told you I've only spent $7,500 on maintenance over the last 7 or 8 years? I think you would probably expect to see the same things that we see in our schools: crumbling walls, crumbling pipes, and the floors that are falling apart. So I think that's what you would expect to see. When we look at the 2020 school bond, the $300 million bond, that was passed by a significant majority in 2020. It does support 8 new construction projects and the purchase of land for additional projects. So these are the projects that are included in the 2020 bond. The land acquisition, you can see the schools that are included. We also have provided a timeline of kind of the start time all of this work started. You'll see in the fall of 2021 the anticipated completion date. Most of this work we expect to have students in the fall of 2024, because we expect the work to be complete in that spring. As you know, it takes a while to build a building. There are certainly different phases. We are in the design phase now. That takes about a year. We have finished schematic design. We are in design development right now. We also have started doing some of the early site work at these sites, and I think when you see when kids get out of school this summer in June, you'll start seeing some work happening on site. So you'll start seeing some buildings coming down, dirt moving. So I think that'll be exciting for all of us to see that work happening this spring. But we expect, again, these projects are going to take about 31 months. And again, we expect students to be in new buildings that Dr. Oakley is going to talk about what they're going to look like in the fall of 2024. Thank you, Dr. Oakley.
Good morning. I'm Whitney Oakley. Nice to meet you. I am a graduate from Guilford County Schools. I have 2 kids in Guilford County Schools. And so, like many of you well aware of, I need to wear 4 layers today, or I was super sweaty, or we have buckets catching the water when we walk down the hallway. So really proud just as a community member to see this change happening. It's long overdue. I'll just point out, because it's exciting, that if you look from your left to right, you'll see the far left is the New Hampton Peeler. So if you're familiar with Hampton Peeler, was impacted by a tornado and is right there in that Peeler community. That building's been demolished already and is kind of fenced off. That's the new Hampton Peeler Visual and Performing Arts. Kaiser, that sits next to Grimsley, that's right there on Benjamin Parkway that you pass by. That's this next one right here. This is the visual for Kaiser Middle. I think the next one is Faust. Faust sits in the middle of a neighborhood. It's pretty locked in. This is the new Faust. And then Claxton, where my 2 kids go to school, so I'm super excited about that one, is all the way down. We don't see, I don't know about you, but when I go out of town and I pass a new school, I slow down and I look at it. And so we haven't had that here in a while. And so I'm really excited about what it has to offer. And Angie mentioned this, but I think some of the work that we have to do as community members is dispelling myths and things that aren't true. And so what I've heard at the ball field and in my neighborhood is, well, what did they do with the $300 million? We haven't seen that yet. Why would we vote for another bond so soon? And the truth is, we're right on schedule. It takes 31 months to build a new school. We don't know that because we don't do it around here very often. So we don't have a lot of schema for what that's like. So I say to people, in fact, we're right on schedule. We're in schematic design phase for most buildings. 31 months is how long on average it takes to build a school. So just helping kind of dispel those myths, I think, is really impactful. And I would encourage you, when we get to the Q&A sessions, to take advantage of sitting close to these superstar principals and district leaders, because they have some really good insight on the potential impact also. So I'm going to show you some examples of conceptual designs. This is Brooks Global. The new Brooks Global will be on the Craven property. You can probably picture it now. It sits next to Wendover when you pass Grimsley on Josephine Boyd. You can see Brooks. Brooks, you may remember from the news last year, literally the floor is sinking into the ground at Brooks Global. The new Brooks Global will be built adjacent to the Arboretum. And so that builds a lot of opportunity for the learning that can take place. Our schools look just like they did 60 years ago. I'm an academic person. I taught kindergarten. And kids don't learn the same. We know way more about how kids learn now. They need to talk to each other. They need to have space to be creative and move around and think. They don't need to be sitting in rows. Teachers are facilitators, not lecturers. The students need to be doing the work, not the teacher at the front of the room. So these designs lend themselves to the kind of learning that we know needs to take place in our schools. This is the new Claxton. You've seen that one down there. Both of these are pretty landlocked, so the space that the schools are being built on really has driven most of the design. Claxton is on a tight space, so it's going to be a taller building than we're used to seeing, but still a beautiful design with lots of collaborative learning space for kids. This one's really cool. If you look at the top of Faust 3 to my left, it's built in the shape of a circuit board. Faust Gaming and Robotics will be the first that we know of gaming elementary school in the country. That's something to be proud of, for sure, and something that we know will lend itself to workforce development. The new visual and performing arts, you can see there, my favorite part is the lighting structure that says art is joy across the bottom of the building. So there's all kinds of these cool lighting elements and features. There's a place on the roof where they can do outdoor performances and concerts for the neighborhoods. What we heard in neighborhood meetings, which we had for every school, we had multiple neighborhood sessions. Well, what we heard at Claxton was, please don't cut down the trees. We like to walk to school. We need a place that's safe to pick kids up, and it would be great if they didn't get soaking wet when they were waiting outside to be picked up. What we heard from the Peeler community was, we want to be a part of it. We want the community to be a seamless part. We want to come in. We want to use the facility. We want students to feel like they're a part of the community here. And so I think this design really did capture this very, very well. Peck Expeditionary Learning, if you think about where Peck sits, it's near where Florida Street goes down behind the Coliseum. It's a very old building, but the campus it sits on is beautiful and historic. It has lots of trees, so they use the trees kind of as the theme here. Expeditionary learning means that students are solving 4 problems a year depending on their grade level, and that's kind of the core of their instruction. So one could be making sure solving the clean water crisis in poor communities, and or growing vegetables without water. So they're doing like real world problem solving, and so this expeditionary learning really lends itself well to discovery and leveraging the campus that it sits on. Kaiser is a really, really old building, and the state of this building really is impacting how learning is taking place. There's sewage issues that have to be resolved regularly at Kaiser. It really is a leaky roof. It's a community that has tons of pride in the school, from Sternberger and Brooks to Kaiser and then Grimsley. So I think it's very exciting that they're going to have visible schools in the central part of Greensboro that they can be very, very proud of. Southwest K8, if you live there or have been on the street, you know the traffic problem that we're talking about. It's growing so fast in Southwest that this school is built as a K8 really to alleviate the overcrowding. The overcrowding is prevalent at Southwest Elementary, Southwest Middle, Southwest High. The traffic's a nightmare, but we want the economy to continue booming. So this Southwest K8 school is built in that Southwest region, and we'll have a STEM center. The STEM centers, there'll be 4 of them across the county, where students can go and engage in STEM field trips, exploration, engagement. We can't afford to have a STEM center at every school, so building one in the quadrants of the county makes a lot of sense and lends itself also to what students are interested in and what they'll be when they grow up. The workforce development areas, I think, are really key to thinking about, the why behind how we're so overdue here. There's schools across the country where students are able to decide on their pathway at the end of 5th grade what they want to be, what they want to explore. 8th grade is late, 9th grade is really late. And they don't have to lock themselves in, but they do need to be exposed. And right now, our buildings and our infrastructure is not set up for that. So you can see here, High Point Andrews will be a public safety and health biomedical science specialty. General Green, science and technology school. Grimsley will have a culinary and engineering program. Jones Elementary will be a K-8 language immersion. Lincoln Academy, Advanced Academics and Visual Performing Arts for 6th through 8th grade. High Point Central will have a Green Construction Trades and Furniture Design program. Swan Center, 6th through 12, where the current Swan Middle is now formerly ACOC, will have Early College High School Leadership Academies, Coding and Artificial Intelligence for 6th through 12th grade. Northeast will have Computer Information Science. Northwest, there will be a Northwest area high school with an aviation program. With Boom coming in collaboration with GTCC, this is a timely area for us to have workforce development programs. Parkview, Montessori, Penn Griffin and High Point, 6-8 Spanish Immersion and 6-12 Visual and Performing Arts. Jackson, 6-12. Mr. Wheat and I were just talking about how popular his school is in terms of the magnet, the Alan J. Prep Academy that he's developed from inception. It has the longest waiting list of our magnet programs, and so expanding that to 6-12 and having it built at Jackson is promising, and a second one that models it in the High Point area so that we have this opportunity for this preparatory academy that's so sought after in both Greensboro and High Point. Smith has a advanced manufacturing, gaming design, and green construction. I can't see the others. Oh, here, I can switch over here. Wellborn, I haven't memorized all these yet. Wellborn, gaming design, innovation, and artificial intelligence. Western already has some of this, but the transportation, distribution, logistics, and heavy vehicle technology, kids are going straight from Western High School into a career making between $60,000 and $70,000 a year. That's happening now and is growing. Page will have specialized healthcare, business, and finance, and then Southern will have the agri-tech business and veterinary tech programs. So you can think about the jobs that are vacant. I think we want people to move here, but we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for this cycle of workforce development. A few other schools that may be of interest to you, given the nature of your job and where people are looking for homes. In Greensboro, Page is a full rebuild, and so taking it down to the studs and rebuilding Page High School. Grimsley is a full renovation. Grimsley is a historical property, so it will have to follow different rules along the full renovation lines. Weaver Academy, the one that cars ran through a lot at the beginning of the year. You know Weaver, corner of Spring Street in Washington. Now it's got lots of these things out front. But Weaver will be rebuilt where McKeever is out Summit Avenue as a visual and performing arts school. It's a white building. You can see kind of the playground equipment when you're going from Summit to 29. Joyner is a complete rebuild, and Sternberger is a complete rebuild. So when you say rebuild, it's really taking it down to the studs. In High Point, Northwood Elementary is a rebuild. Shady Brook Elementary is a full renovation, and in Jamestown, Millis Road Elementary is a rebuild. Those are some schools that would be impacted initially if the 2022 bond passes. So it's really important for us and the community and those schools that are next on the list moving forward. So with that, I think we can take Q&A. Did you want to close out? Yeah.
Well, as my slides are teed up, I want to personally thank you all for your commitment to this campaign. You not only have had us present several times, you financially contributed to our campaign, which is helping us get the word out to the entire county to make sure that they know that this is an important issue. This is very much a get out to vote campaign more than it is what we did in 2020 when we were riding the presidential election. And while people were coming to the polls, we were reminding them the importance of this. This is a different election. It's a primary election. We are estimating around 60,000 people coming out to vote, and so we need 30,000 1,001 people to say yes and yes. So I'm just going to quickly go through this, and then we'll take some questions and answers. So what is SMART? SMART stands for Safe, Modern, Accessible, Renovated, and Tech-Ready Schools. Dr. Oakley and Angie Henry just laid the case for that. You understand how SMART encompasses what the Facilities Master Plan includes. And so if you're asked out in the public, what does SMART mean? It means Safe, Modern, Accessible, Renovated, and Tech-Ready Schools. This campaign and all the materials were developed in 2020, and as I mentioned, that was a kickstart to the full campaign. So there are 2 referendums on the ballot. I will remind you that early voting begins on April the 28th, so not too far away. Early voting ends on May the 14th, and then the final day to vote, Election Day, is May the 17th. And so make sure that folks in your communities know those important dates. You can register on the spot during early voting. So if you're not registered, maybe you're a new 18-year-old that wants to come out and vote, you can register on the spot at early voting. In addition to the $1.7 billion bond, there is a sales tax on the ballot, which is 0.25%. We call that a fraction of a penny. A lot of people get confused when they see a quarter. They think it is a quarter. It is not. It's 1/4 cent. So for every $20 that you spend, you're adding an additional 5 cents. It's a return on investment for our community. And I will remind you, and this is an important thing that you guys can spread the word on, sales tax in North Carolina does not apply to groceries, vehicles, gasoline, or prescription drugs. And so when people are saying, it's hard right now, my Netflix subscription's going up and gas prices are going up, well, you'll be paying a little extra on your Netflix, but you will not be paying it on your groceries, your gasoline, your vehicles, or your prescription drugs. So why is this needed? I think we've made the case already. The $300 million was a jump start to the full Facilities Master Plan, that $2 billion of need that was set in 2017, a collaboration between Guilford County and Guilford County Schools. We know that we have equipment malfunctions, we have crumbling facilities, and our buildings, Guilford County school buildings, are an average of 55 years old. And so if you imagine that deferred maintenance year over year has really built up, and that's what's put us in this position for the need of the $2 billion. 100% of schools will be upgraded with safety and security measures. As Dr. Oakley mentioned, there are in-demand STEM CTE programs that are being added to our school system. As an economic development organization, we know that the first thing that companies look at when they come to a community, they ask what are the quality of the schools. And we need to show future employers we are a hot spot right now because of the momentum that's happened with Toyota and Boom in the last several months. There are lots of RFIs coming in for economic development pitches. We have site visits weekly from companies, and we need to show them that voters and citizens of this community are getting behind the community to continue to rally to improve them. In addition to that, 100% of our school buildings will be added to instructional technology. As Dr. Oakley mentioned, teaching and practices have changed, and we need tools to advance those practices. So here's a couple headlines, and I want to go back to my economic development pitch. When we have companies visiting, it is never good to have a headline that says animals are in better conditions than our schools. And so these headlines don't do us justice when we are trying to improve this community and trying to bring new and higher wage jobs to this community. And so as we hunt for talent, you all know this, talent is a hot issue. To fill the jobs that are coming to this community and make sure that companies can find the talent they need, we need to prove that our community and our schools are up to par when we do so. So 0.25% sales tax, a fraction of a penny, it spreads the bond repayment beyond just property owners. You all know this more than I do probably. Guilford County is the 3rd most visited county in North Carolina. Visitors in 2019 brought in about $1.6 billion of sales tax revenue. So we think about the revenue that's generated from a sales tax. It's shared not only from the folks that live here, but also visitors that come to this community. Hamilton's happening right now at Tanger Center. Furniture Market just wrapped up in High Point. We know that Guilford County is a hot attraction for folks that are coming in from all across the state and the country to come here to visit for conventions and entertainment activities. And this is a great way to share that revenue with visitors that come to our community. For every $20 that you spend, that's just an additional 5 pennies. And so someone said to me yesterday with Synergy Young Professionals, they said, if I buy a jean jacket at the Wrangler store downtown, I said, if the jean jacket's $40, you're paying an extra 10 cents. And I think that's a fair return on investment to improve our schools. So looking forward, again, I want to thank you all for the contribution you've made to host this event, to provide funding for our campaign, to provide leadership. I want to thank Janice Smith for being on our committee. She's a rock star member of our committee. Mildred Poole is also here from our Advocacy Committee, so thank you, Mildred. We've got a number of companies and organizations that are behind this effort, from funding the campaign to endorsing the campaign, but we still need more. And so I'm going to tell you how you can get involved. You've already funded the campaign, so thank you. We are continuing to look for additional endorsements, so if your individual realtor association or companies want to get behind this, we'd love to have you endorse the bond. On our website, which is smartschoolbond.com, there is a link to endorse, which allows you to upload your logo and your company name, and then we'll put that on our website and all of our materials. We are looking for volunteers. We will be working at early voting sites as well as on Election Day, and we're currently canvassing in partnership with the Guilford County Educators Association, so walking neighborhoods and putting these flyers on doors. And so if you're interested in getting some extra steps in the next couple weekends, we would love to have you out canvassing or signing up to volunteer at a poll. You can do that on our website, smartschoolbond.com. We've got lots and lots of yard signs. Yard signs are available at our office at Action Greensboro on the corner of Friendly and Elm, just across from Center City Park. They're also available at the Business High Point location in High Point. So if you need yard signs, please pick them up, share them with folks in your circles, in your networks. We would love to get more yard signs out. And then finally, I don't think I need to ask you this, but don't forget to vote. Again, vote yes and yes for both the school bond and the sales tax. So I think at this point we'll open it up to questions. Oh, Mike, do you want to?
So full disclosure, I'm still an academic person, but the sustainability of the buildings is a part of the design process from the inception on. So in schematic design, they're looking at the different efficiencies. They're doing that with the procurement process, so they have to meet different efficiency requirements. Just by nature, our buildings are so inefficient that it's costing us lots and lots of money to put Band-Aids on problems. So all I can say is that the sustainability and the efficiency is a metric in the rubrics that we're using within the design process, and they'll also be the back end. There's conversations around what's feasible, what's sustainable, because once they're built, we want to be able to keep them in great shape. Yes. Yeah, it's the Smith and Andrew zones that will become choice zones. And so when you think about the schools that feed into Smith High School and feed into Andrews High School, those will become full choice zones. The rest will maintain their neighborhood school status, but students can apply to go. It really increases the options for students. But a student who goes to Grimsley that does not want to do culinary arts does not have to do culinary arts, because Grimsley will still be a traditional comprehensive high school. So we won't, so we are in the schematic design phase, and we're in this, what do you give, what do you get to stay on budget? It's no secret that inflation is a reality, that labor is more expensive than it ever has before. When we end the schematic design phase, like I was on a meeting yesterday of do, we can't have all 4 lab classrooms because that pushes us over the projected budget here. And so at the ending phase of this schematic design, we'll have the final lines and then decide what we give and take to make sure that we stay on budget given the inflation. So I don't have the exact number per building, but I can tell you that the conversations that we're in now is based on where we are with schematic design. How can we be as close to on budget as possible given the current situation with inflation? I also think it's important to point out that we're so used to not having new schools. Like I was talking to somebody from Sternberger, and she said, my daughter's been in a trailer classroom for 3 years in a row. Because this grade level moved to this, and so she's just kind of been back there. And she said, after the tornado, I'm terrified. Like, that was on a Sunday night. And if you saw the pictures of what happened to the mobile units at Hampton, it's a really good thing that we were at home and not at school on April 15th. And so I think, a lot of people have said these designs are way elaborate. Can't we just go back to the box and the forward-sitting classrooms? And the truth is we can't. It's not how kids learn. It's not how schools stay strong. And it's not what makes people want to move here. It's in a study. It's in a study that was done in Wake County. I don't know. Do you know that is it median wage incomes? I think it's a span. I think it's everything from like HVAC, engineering, design, architecture. So I think depending on, I think it will cross a spectrum of wage earnings when you think about the jobs that will be created. Yes. Yeah, it really depends on the site. So, like Peck, for example, can stay in their school at Peck during the whole construction process. There are other schools like Claxton where my kids go to school where they're going to have to go to they're going to have to go to a school for 2 years and then come back to the new Claxton because there's literally no space when you drive down Pine Top Road. Like, there's nowhere else that they can go. So it's site specific, and it really depends. But that's part of what Angie was saying is the phasing and the swing space is part of the order. The first thing that drives the order is the state of the schools. The schools that are in the worst shape get touched first. But also the phasing of the projects feeds into that. But the answer is it depends on the site itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it depends on the order, right? So it'll depend on when, like Page is like which school is going first and where they go. But won't it be nice when all the kids can fit in the cafeteria at Page? The economic development tracks. Mm-hmm. So the programming is phased in as we get to that school.
on the list. And so we do get some Perkins funds for CTE programs, which is most of what you saw listed there. And so as that school is ready to open, then the professional development, the staffing, and the how we design those classrooms matter. So for example, where we are with PEC is making sure that we have these expeditionary learning labs are built into the budget and the design for PEC. It's not now the school's done, let's go figure out how to pay for the program. So it's 31 months from project start for each school. And so we're on track for the first 8. I can speak to the answer for that. That answer is fall of 2024. We will have to see what inflation looks like and what schools are in the next order on the 2022 bond when it passes. So I think that I can't give you by this date in 2030 they'll all be done, but I can say that 31 months per project from start date to end date is where we are right now, and that's what we're on track with. Well, I think that slide that Angie showed with the requested versus the funded capital outlay probably makes the strongest point. I saw a couple of people take pictures of that one. I think when you look at just funding per square foot, it's not that there hasn't been a need. Another one is just giving an example. So we have been replacing the HVAC unit at Lincoln for 3 years because we didn't get enough capital funding in 1 year to fix one air-conditioned unit. And so really this concept about band-aiding and piecemealing, it's taking us 3 years to pay for one air conditioner. And so we can't do at-scale change unless we pass the bond, unless we make this happen. So to me, giving examples and saying what the ask versus the funded but you have to say it a lot of times in different ways to get that. I think back to his question, I know it's not a good answer, but my crystal ball for inflation, nor the federal government's is that good right now. And so I think we're staying true. We're going in order. We're not skipping around. It used to be the loudest voice got the most repairs and the most money soon. This is a really fair and transparent way to attack a problem that's decades old. I also think the transparency piece is the best way to approach it. So I think we have a website that shows exactly where we are with each project and how much money has been spent on each project versus what was budgeted. And so I think not holding that in and being public facing with that is another strategy we have. I think Greenville, South Carolina is a really good example. As you know, BMW invested in their their advanced manufacturing facility around 15 years ago. It's something that we had our eyes on. I think oftentimes when we compare Greensboro to any other city, our aspirational city is Greenville in Greenville-Spartanburg County. With BMW, they had the opportunity and the leverage from that community to really transform every school building in the district. The superintendent brought a group down to Greenville not long ago to really see those buildings and be inspired by that work. They did that in a different way, a public-private partnership way that is really legislatively not as easy here in North Carolina. But I think that's a great example of the momentum that's come from those renovated schools to really transform that community, to meet the needs of the workforce there, to have the CTE program integrated within those schools, and to see the momentum that they've had in terms of additional economic development, talent that's going there. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a cocktail party somewhere and they say, "You're from Greensboro. I love the river that goes through that city." And I'm like, not the same place, but we're getting there. So I think Greenville, South Carolina is a great community to really look at in terms of the example of the momentum that can come from an investment like this.
I mean, I've asked the superintendent that question myself, and we've talked about it a lot. I think, we can continue to Band-Aid and hope, but my plan is to continue to fight and put things on the ballot in a way that's not small chunks at a time until something passes. I mean, I think the reality here, ask the principals. It's interfering with what they should be doing as instructional leaders, the time spent putting work orders in, and mostly thinking about what our kids deserve, I think just has to be at the forefront of the conversation. Unless the county has an influx of funding from somewhere in this magic pot that we've never been able to access before, we're going to end up in the same place we are if we don't get bold and behind what we need to do with the bond. They follow the order. So Angie talked about the facilities master plan. It's got numbers about the conditions of the facility, and so they go in order. And so some of them we can do at the same time. I think most larger bond projects, they do 7 to 15 projects at a time, just thinking about what we have in terms of construction managers, architects, what they have in terms of their capacity. And so there's phases, and we will go in the order of the building condition. Yes. It is. It's on the website. And do you want to talk about the easiest way to find it? Thank you for asking that. So schoolbondfacts.com, and you click on Facilities Master Plan, and it's color-coded, and the score is in the very right-hand column. Yes? The sales tax is a separate vote from the bond.
Good question. I think the more likely case is that the school bond passes and the sales tax fails. In this county, we have failed to approve a sales tax increase in quite some time. I will say that our sales tax rate is 6.75%. Every county has an option to increase for special use. Forsyth County passed a 0.25% sales tax in 2020 for teacher salary supplements, and that increased their teacher salary supplements around $2,000 per teacher. Imagine what that does to the competitive nature of getting teachers to school systems. Mecklenburg and Wake County both have a 0.5-cent sales tax that goes towards transportation, and so if you've ridden the light rail in Charlotte, those sales tax dollars support that. So I think, again, the more likely case is the sales tax fails. If so, the property tax will have to be reevaluated, and that's a decision that the Guilford County Commission will have to make. Last night at the Guilford County Commission board meeting, they approved a resolution to say that if the sales tax passes, then they will lower the property tax. And as you all know, we're all getting our reval letters, or we did at one point in the time, and we're wondering, what impact will that make? And so I think we all can agree that we'd like to lower the property tax, and if we pass the sales tax, we'll get there. If not, they'll have a hard decision to make. Yeah, Kevin. That's a great question. So in North Carolina, you have to seek legislative approval to designate a sales tax for particular use. We failed to get the legislature to approve that designation. And so after, I would say, kudos to the chambers for really putting in heavy lobbying, and we failed at doing so. So the county commission has made a resolution to make sure that to declare that those dollars would be allocated to facilities infrastructure. And Mike Halford, the new county manager, former budget director, made some budget changes or policy changes within budget to make sure that those are even more difficult if the leadership changed on the county commission. And so we've done everything that we can, aside from our friends in Raleigh giving us that designation. So on the ballot, it will not say for schools. It will just show an increase of 0.00, or actually it'll say 0.25% increase in sales tax. All our peer communities in North Carolina, the larger metros, either have a quarter or a half-cent sales tax. So we're the lowest, and that would bring us to 7, which would match Forsyth County. So there's a great slide that we don't have with us that the county's put together that really shows sort of a curve in terms of some savings that they have in addition with the reval, and then scenarios if the sales tax passes and if it doesn't. And so there we can follow up. Actually, I think there was a new version of that presented yesterday to the county commission in their work session that they've proposed. So you can sort of see that schedule of how the dollars would be let over time and what revenues come into the county to support the payment of the bond. Yes. I feel very confident in Mike Halford. I've worked with him a number of times. He's an excellent budget manager, director, and he's even better county manager. So we're in really good hands with Mike. All right. Thank you guys for your support, and we'll hopefully see you at the polls.